There is a room at your company. You have never been invited to it. You do not know exactly when it meets. You do not know everything that gets discussed inside it. But you know it exists because every decision that actually matters comes out of it already made. The reorg, the budget allocation, the promotion that bypassed the entire official process, the strategic pivot that nobody on your team saw coming. That room is not on any org chart. It does not have a calendar invite you can find. It is not reserved for the most senior titles or the longest tenures. It is reserved for the people that leadership has already decided, quietly and without announcement, are worth including. And here is what nobody tells you about how people get into that room. It is not performance reviews. It is not years of service. It is not even results, not entirely. The people in that room got there through a series of small, deliberate moves that positioned them as essential before anyone formally decided they were. Moves that happened in hallways, inside conversations, in the 30 seconds after a meeting ended, in the way they handled a moment nobody else thought was significant. My name is Zara, and today I am going to give you the 5 moves that quietly put you in the room where decisions are made. Not by making you louder, not by making you political in the way that word makes your skin crawl, but by making you the kind of person that rooms like that cannot afford to keep out. Before the 5 moves, you need to understand the architecture of organizational power, because most people misread it completely, and that misreading is exactly why they stay outside the room. Most people believe that organizational power flows downward from titles, that the people at the top have it, that the people below them receive it, that if you want more of it, you need a bigger title, and to get a bigger title, you need to perform well enough for someone above you to grant you one. That model is wrong, or rather it is incomplete. And the incomplete version is the expensive version to believe. Here is what is actually true. In every organization, there is formal power, the kind attached to titles and org charts, and there is informal power, the kind attached to trust, access, and perceived indispensability. Formal power is assigned, informal power is accumulated, and informal power almost always precedes formal power. The promotion does not create the influence. The influence creates the conditions that make the promotion inevitable. The people already in the room did not wait for a title to give them access. They accumulated enough informal power that access became the natural next step. They made themselves impossible to exclude, not by demanding inclusion, but by becoming the kind of presence that decisions felt incomplete without. That is the game. These are the 5 moves. Move number 1. Become the person who connects problems to people. Every organization is full of problems that the right person could solve if only the right person knew the problem existed. And every organization is full of people with relevant expertise that never reaches the problems it could fix because nobody made the connection. The person who makes those connections consistently becomes irreplaceable without ever being the one who solved the problem or owned the expertise. This is not about being a middleman. It is about being the node in the network that information flows through. When a senior leader mentions a challenge in a meeting, the person who says afterward, privately, briefly, "I know someone on the ops team who solved something similar last quarter. Would it be useful if I made that introduction?" That person has just demonstrated organizational awareness that most employees never develop. They did not need to solve the problem. They knew who could, and they acted on that knowledge without being asked. Do this 3 times with the right people, and your name begins to appear in rooms where problems are being discussed because leaders start to believe, correctly, that you have a map of the organization that most people do not. People with maps get included in navigation. That is how the door to the room opens. Move number 2. Brief up, not just out. Most professionals communicate horizontally to their peers, to their immediate team, to the people at the same level doing adjacent work. They keep their manager informed. They report into the structure they were given. What they almost never do, deliberately and consistently, is brief upward. Not in the performative, "look what I did" way that most people recognize and resent. In the genuinely useful, "here is something I think you should know before it becomes a problem" way that senior leaders experience as a gift. Senior leaders are almost always the last people in an organization to find out what is actually happening. Information moves upward slowly, filtered through layers of management that soften, delay, or simply lose the signal entirely. The leader sitting in the decision room is often operating on information that is weeks old and politically edited. The person who brings them clean, early, accurate signals briefly, without drama, without an agenda attached, becomes a trusted source. And trusted sources get kept close. They get included. They get asked. This is not about going around your manager. It is about understanding that the leaders making decisions about your career are often working with incomplete pictures, and that occasionally, strategically, giving them a clearer one positions you as someone with both awareness and integrity. Those two qualities together are rare enough that they get noticed at levels where it counts. Move number 3, speak last when it matters most. There is a specific moment in every important meeting that most people waste. It is the moment right before the conversation closes, when the energy is shifting toward conclusion, when people are beginning to gather their things mentally, when the final impression of the discussion is being formed. Most people have already said everything they are going to say by that point. The room is winding down, and they wind down with it. The person who speaks at that moment cleanly, briefly, with a single observation that synthesizes what just happened or sharpens the direction forward, is the person the room remembers. Not the person who spoke most, not the person who presented the most data, the person who landed the last meaningful thought. This is the mechanism behind what strategists call the recency effect, the cognitive reality that people disproportionately remember the last thing they heard in a conversation. In a meeting of 12 people, the person who speaks last with clarity shapes how every other person in the room mentally files the entire discussion. You do not need to dominate meetings to own them. You need to be present, pay attention to when the energy is shifting, and have one clear synthesis ready. Something like, what I'm taking from this is that we are choosing speed over completeness, which means we need to decide now who owns the risk if the timeline slips. One sentence, precise, forward-looking, unapologetically clear. That sentence gets remembered. Your name gets attached to that sentence. And the next time a room is being assembled to discuss something similar, your name surfaces, because the last time this happened, you were the one who saw it clearly when everyone else was already mentally in the hallway. Move number 4. Protect someone's reputation in public, and they will protect yours in private. This is the most underestimated move on this entire list, and the most quietly powerful. Every workplace has moments where someone takes a hit in public, a presentation that goes sideways, a decision that gets questioned in a meeting, a project outcome that did not land the way leadership expected. In those moments, the room watches, and the room notices not just what happened, but who said what about it. Most people in that room say nothing useful. Some quietly enjoy the misfortune. Some pile on, gently, just enough to distinguish themselves from the person struggling. The person who steps in not to rescue, not to deflect accountability, but to add context, to acknowledge the complexity of what was attempted, to say something precise and true that stops the momentum of public erosion. That person has just done something that almost nobody does in corporate environments. They spent political capital on someone else. And that transaction does not go unnoticed, not by the person who was protected, not by the room that watched it happen. The person you protected will spend the rest of their tenure in that organization as an active ally, not out of obligation. Out of the kind of loyalty that only gets created when someone sees you do something they did not expect. This is not charity. This is the most efficient investment in organizational influence that exists because it builds the kind of relationships that speak for you in rooms you will never enter, at moments you will never know about, in ways you cannot manufacture through any other means. Move number 5. Make the ask before you need the answer. Most people build relationships reactively. They invest in connections when they need something, a reference, an introduction, a favor, a vote in their direction. And because the investment arrives at the same moment as the request, it reads exactly like what it is: transactional. Transactional relationships produce transactional responses. Transactional responses do not get you into rooms. The move that separates the people inside the room from the people outside it is this: they made the relationship before they needed it. They expressed interest in someone's work before they wanted anything from them. They showed up for a colleague's priority before that colleague became a decision maker. They built the bridge in good weather, not when the river was rising. Here is what this looks like in practice. Identify 2 or 3 people in your organization who are one level above where decisions that affect you are made, not your direct manager. the layer above, the people in the room or close to it. Then find one genuine point of intersection, a project they care about, a challenge they have mentioned, a priority that connects to something you actually know about, and engage with it. Not to get something, to give something, an observation, a resource, a connection, an offer to help with something that costs you time but costs you nothing else. Do this before you need anything. Do this when there is no ask attached. And when the moment comes, when a seat opens in the room, when a decision is being made about who should be included, when your name could reasonably come up, you will not be a stranger requesting access. You will be someone they already know, already trust, and already think well of. That is the difference between knocking on the door and already having a key. Here is what these 5 moves have in common. None of them require you to be someone you are not. None of them require volume or performance, or a personality that fills rooms before the work does. Every single one of them is quiet, deliberate, patient, and compounding, meaning the longer you practice them, the more access they produce, because influence built on genuine trust does not plateau the way visibility-based tactics do. The room where decisions are made is not locked. It does not have a guest list printed in advance. It is filled with people who made themselves impossible to exclude one small, deliberate, unremarkable move at a time. Moves that nobody announced. Moves that nobody celebrated. Moves that accumulated into a presence that leadership eventually could not imagine making decisions without. You already know how to work. You already know how to deliver. What you needed was the map of the room that nobody drew for you. Now you have it. If Zara versus the Workplace is showing you the architecture of systems they never explained, subscribe. Every video is another layer of the real game, made visible. Hit subscribe. Share this with someone still standing outside the room. The channel grows when the right people find it, and you finding it was not an accident.